Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is the Man in the Middle podcast, and my special guest today, Graeme Speak. He's the CEO and founder of BankVault. So, Graeme, I really want to welcome you to the pod.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, and we're just saying before we hit go, just trying to get a timeline of when we met. It was around the back end. We're in 2024 now, back end of 2023, and then we've spoken a few times and learnt more about your company and your product and everything.
What was interesting is that Jeremy contacted me. I was in San Francisco and just started this banter, and remarkably, here I am in Perth with you now. This is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, the internet's an amazing thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I lured you onto my podcast after all that time. and in case people didn't recognize from both of our accents, especially you, you're probably about as Australian as Vegemite. So
Born and bred in Fremantle.
There you go. But
actually, a rare thing for Perth these days to be actually a native.
Yeah, it's true.
We're almost an extinct species.
Yeah. No way. Like I born and bred here as well. I grew up in Connolly, Joondalup area, for those who aren't so familiar with Perth. But just on that, like, you were brought up here, Graeme. Can you tell me how you got into the world of technology and also cybersecurity? Where did it actually begin for you?
Cybersecurity is recent. I always wanted to be a scientist or an astronaut. They're still both on my agenda. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid. So, I mean, for me, this is a long path, but it's just I'm still on point. It's been a journey of a lifetime. And I love what I do. I have the most interesting job ever. It's creative. People think business is not creative. It's totally creative. Tech is creative. We're building new tech. And if we get it right, we impact the world. And that's my purpose, is really to help and contribute to people.
Yeah, fantastic. And being of a more recent vintage, like the cybersecurity element, like, where did that come through, like, in your journey?
That was an interesting pivot. I've had a long series of a lot of pivots, but every time I pivot, it's always to, when I see an opportunity for what we've already got, to keep just taking another step in a different direction, which will amplify our market opportunity, at least tenfold, sometimes 100-fold. So it's a series of these, and I think that pivot was really interesting. I had a phone call out of the blue from a real estate agent in East Fremantle, and he had the fear of God put into him by our government because real estate agent trust accounts were being hacked, and despite having two-factor authentication. And this guy was desperate. He was breaking my door down. And I had a device that I'd had sitting on my desk for 2 years. We'd built this. It was like a little Raspberry Pi. It was connecting to our data center. And we kind of linked up so that if you turned on the Raspberry Pi, it would build a virtual machine in the data center and appear on the screen. And we had that machine locked to that specific device. We were sampling elements of the hardware to uniquely identify the device. And it was one of these things we'd invented, didn't know what the application was. And it was sitting there doing nothing for 2 years. And this guy rang up paranoid, and I thought, well, I'll just give this to him. He loved it. And so that was like, well, maybe we're solving a problem here. And when I looked at it more deeply, if you're the trustee of a trust account, you're personally liable for any money that goes missing. There can be 40 times more money in the trust account than your business is worth. So this was a way of literally just sidestepping the problem. It was very, very basic. Instead of using your own local machine, you'll never know if it's compromised. Use a machine in the cloud, like brand new. So we worked out we could build these machines. One of our first intellectual property patents was actually how we build virtual machines in about 1 to 2 seconds. So we did this when Amazon was taking 30 to 40 minutes. And that patent's been granted worldwide. So it's really, really clever and cool tech. And it was literally applying that technology to this other problem. And my sales cycle reduced from 10 months to 10 minutes. I was selling it for 10 times the price per user. And there was no backups, there was no mail systems, etc. So our costs were reduced to 1/10 as well. So it was like 1,000 times leverage. So that was when the light went on. And I used to talk about pivots and even write about pivots, and this was just like the most mind-blowing thing. And on the back of that, we won top fintech startup worldwide in Silicon Valley.
What year was that?
2016. Yeah. It was like That was a shock. Between here and San Francisco, I rehearsed my opening line 5,000 times. And as I got onto stage, we were the only Australian company to be selected for this World Cup. So I got a lot of publicity before that, or I should say we did. And they actually played the national anthem of Australia. And I'm standing up on stage like, oh, that's the national anthem. I completely lost my lines. I've got the weight of my investors, my team, like years of work for this moment, and I had not a clue what my opening line was. It was chilling. And I just blocked everything out, went deep, just relaxed. Thought, what was I doing? Oh, that's what it was. And I started. On the video later, it was only 3 seconds. It felt like 15 minutes.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, and incredibly, we won that event in terms of the FinTech Award. That was astonishing, and my life really was just sucked away from me at that point. I was inundated. I lost weeks and weeks. I've got no idea what happened in that period. There was just so much going on. So yeah, on the back of that, I moved to Sydney for a couple of years, and then from there back to San Francisco.
Yeah. So traveling around, like, to meet certain opportunities and things like that, right? Yeah.
So going back to the question about the pivot, we just saw an angle there. We rebranded the company as BankVault Cybersecurity. We've got now probably conservatively 25, 30 innovations, probably a lot more, just lose count. And these are really distinct technologies. It's typically deep tech. So we're not just building a product, we're actually building a way of doing something different at a foundational level. So it changes everything. So an example of that was building these virtual machines.
Yeah.
What is so cool about that particular patent, it's now granted, most of the world. It goes back 10 years. And you think, well, okay, how useful is a patent that was 10 years old? Well, the whole world has now moved to using virtual machines. Everyone, like everything from Twitter to Facebook to whatever you use online is using virtual machines. I've had some engineers guess how we did this, which was a bit embarrassing at the time. So we thought we'd doing something clever, file this patent, and then someone says in 3 seconds how we did it. Because, it's like, wow, it was obvious. It wasn't obvious the moment before we invented it, because we've been thinking about this for months. But that is actually now our strong suit, because it is highly likely that other engineering teams have actually used this technique, in which case they're actually infringing our patent. And we can backdate this to 2015. Now, I'm not wanting to be a patent troll. It's not my charter. But the patent itself is probably quite valuable. And
Yeah, okay. But I want to actually get a sense of, because you do have a couple of products under BankVault, don't you, Graeme? And I want to get a sense of how these were developed, and just getting a sense of, number one, the value of what it's offering, but also a bit of an understanding of how the tech behind it works, because I've certainly never seen anything like it. So I want to sort of break it down a little bit.
I'm so proud of what my team have created, and it's not me. I'm the lightning rod. I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm coordinating guys that are very creative, very, very clever technically. What we're always looking for is deep technical insights that have not been noticed before, and harnessing that and then building on it. So, the technique that we developed in a nutshell for building these machines instantly, we had a problem. We were building, or we had have a large virtual machine that had maybe hundreds of virtual desktops. That was called virtual desktop infrastructure. We deliver that virtual desktop across the internet. So you can be sitting in front of any device, and we'll deliver the image from the data center to your screen. And we were doing this since 1995, so long time. What we had built, we grew to 16,000 users. It was a Linux desktop, so the costs of licenses was zero. It was really cool. But the problem was that, those 16,000 users, they weren't all active. This is registered users, but the support on it was zero. It was bulletproof. But it started getting out of date. Things kind of get tired. People want things refreshed. The refresh project we couldn't afford to do. It's going to be 3 man years. So the problem was, how do we solve this so that we never have to do maintenance again? And the idea, the thought experiment, we basically sit around in the innovation room at 7 a.m. each morning and just chew the fat, just brainstorm, talk about things, and it's actually a really cool time. And we eventually hit on this idea. Well, if you were going to log in and get a brand new virtual machine, like we could rebuild that machine each day as a pristine new machine. That'd be cool, but we'd need to separate out your settings and data from that machine. So, okay, if we could do that, the build time for a machine is a long time, but we thought we could come up with ways of actually accelerating that, effectively do a pre-build each morning. So most of the machine is kind of pre-built, and then we can just copy it. Well, it still took 4.5 minutes. But then what we realized is we could do some things like, not just a golden image, but this I call it a pre-build. I'm working over my own words here. We'd actually do a pre-build and then actually turn off the CPU. Do it again, do it again, do it again. So we end up with dozens of these virtual machines using up 0 CPU. The operating system then kicks in. If the machine space or the memory is identical on all these machines, eventually it realizes it can deduplicate. Instead of having 20 machines, let's just have one and put pointers at that one's memory space. So now I've got dozens or hundreds of virtual machines using up 0 memory and 0 CPU. So Jeremy, you log in. It's Jeremy again. We pick a machine, turn it on, give it some CPU, connect it with your data, and bang, you're done. 1 to 2 seconds. That was a technique. And it's so effective. I've had customers on that now for the last 10 years, and it works perfectly. And we simply applied that technology to then solving this issue of bank account takeovers. You'll never know if your computer is hacked. So don't use your computer, go and use something else. We're sidestepping the problem. It's really fundamental. So you log in through a browser, and I can do a demo here if you like. It should just take 1 to 2 seconds. I'm losing my thread a bit, but basically that's the technique.
Yeah. Okay. And then where does that then lead into? You've got that side of things, but and the one that I know is very much something that you're focused on at the moment is the changing that problem of login abandonment.
Yeah. So these pivots, each step amplifies the opportunity at least 10 times and typically 100 times.
Yeah.
And it is exponential. It's quite incredible the way the world keeps going. But you can see this from everything on the internet. It just grows and grows and grows. So, yeah, but we built on the shoulders of that. It's a long story, and I won't go through the whole story. But where we are right now, we developed a technology, and it is a funny story. I'll tell you the story about how we developed MasterKey. So we're now no longer just selling to consumers or small businesses. We're selling to enterprises, hosting web services. So think of pretty much anything that you do online through a browser. Okay, we've got a technique now which will give you an experience of logging in without ever having to remember or enter your user credentials, username, password. Username, passwords are such a problem. Hard to remember, easy to hack. Every password's got to be different. Like you've got to use a password manager. Yeah. Password managers are convenient. They are not secure. I mean, what's in the password manager is secure, but the moment it loads your encrypted password into the web form, it's clear text. You see asterisks? That's just a mask for the person sitting in the chair next to you. Any software in that machine or browser sees that as clear text, and you haven't pressed login yet. So if there's a man in the browser, it's intercepted instantly. The reason we're using two-factor authentication these days is because it is a really good idea, but we use it because you have to. Right? It's not a great user experience. It's a pain in the neck for users. And for an organization delivering a web service, even if the technology, the 2FA technology is free, it's expensive to deploy and it's expensive to support. That's the problem. And so we've come up with a way of actually providing two-factor authentication in one step that's invisible to the user with no software. And login is instant. So you never need to remember your username and password.
That's my kind of thing.
So the market for this, as I said, things keep growing exponentially. The addressable market for this is currently around $45 billion. This is 40 times larger than the market for password managers, which are kind of, they're in the autumn of their life cycle now. So the world is going passwordless. I will also say passwordless does not mean frictionless. There are some very clumsy passwordless technologies out there. And this is where we shine. What we've created is actually invisible to the user. There is no software to download, install, or configure. So you can deploy to 1 million users overnight.
Yeah. Like, so how long would it take for a company, if I'm a company that, wanted to implement this? Like
well, this is what's remarkable. So we're building, no-code modules. So for example, if you were a school university running Moodle's a Perth company. They made the decision 20 years ago to open source. So they now have 160,000 schools and universities and over 400 million users. Quite likely a lot more than that, maybe 2 or 3 times that. It's an extraordinary success story. So we built a module. You could put into that marketplace, and operationally, you'll be up and running in 3 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
No technology risk. I can justify that. No security risk. I can explain that too. And no business risk, because we actually make it free. Free to start with. We want it proven. We want you hooked and addicted. And of course, once it's all established and we're adding value, then of course pay. Yeah. And in fact, what we've done is even made that self-service. So any organisation running an online web service, like a web application, you go to our website, you create an account for free, you get your activation code for free. The instructions are there. You can do it manually or do it with a module, and it could be 3 to 30 minutes. What you're providing now is seamless access for your users. That's going to increase engagement. It is stronger security. That's going to build trust. And what we were doing was, reversing or eliminating login abandonment, which is a major issue. And the pivot that we've just gone through, and is fresh right now, is we just filed a patent the other day on using this in a different way to actually stop or eliminate registration abandonment.
Okay, can you explain that?
And this is so cool. So this was another mind-blowing thing. We built this for ourselves, and in fact, there's a whole story behind this. So I'm just going to get to the punchline. 50% to 90% of visitors to a website who start to register for an account abandon the process. It's enormous. You've got to use another username, one you've never used before. It's going to be at least 12 characters long. You have special characters, numbers. You then need to provide your email address. You've got to wait for the email to turn up. Doesn't turn up, you've got to go and check your spam folder. If it's not there after a few minutes, there's a resend button. It's like no one's got the time. Haven't got the time, haven't got the patience, and people move on. And a lot of people even object to even giving an email address these days. So what we've created is a way where we can literally capture every user. Now imagine if you had a really poor performing site and you were losing 90% of your prospective customers. These guys that are there ready to go ahead. 90% abandonment. Imagine we could reduce that to 80%. We've now doubled your customer acquisition and pipeline. But what we're doing is actually reducing this to 0. So literally every visitor to your site that taps a button that says enter or start shopping gets an account, it's paired with their device and logs in milliseconds. That's really powerful. So the headline here is we could double or quadruple customer acquisitions. Now there's another thing that kicks in. There's a methodology called progressive profiling. And we all know it these days, rather than ask the customer for everything about themselves in creating an account, you want the minimum so that they don't leave. So if you get them into the system, they can walk around, they can now see, okay, this is relevant to me. Yeah, I'm happy to give my phone number before I give you my credit card. I'm happy to give you my address because I need a delivery. Yeah, I might want to pair this with other devices. So yeah, I'll give my email address, or you do an account recovery.
Yeah, so there's like a logical progression of like, okay, I understand why you need this piece of information. And you're gonna have to deliver. You need my address. Like, is that kind of what you?
That's exactly right. But the most important step here is to get the customer into the slipstream, into that river. And at the moment, the best you can do is ask for their email address. I hope they get it right. Validate it, but that process could take it could take seconds, but typically it'd take a minute or two, and we've eliminated that. So what we've done is actually reducing that to literally a second or less.
Yeah.
And that's pretty powerful.
Big time. Yeah.
So to set context here, we've just filed the patent. I can now talk about this. We couldn't talk about it, what we were doing. And I actually pitched this to one of the senior executives of Estee Lauder in New York recently, and totally hooked him. It was exciting. It's a $1.5 billion turnover business. And again, the headline is, we might double it. So this technology is very powerful in terms of what it achieves.
Yeah, fantastic.
So let me
give me
a demo?
Please.
Yeah. This is a quickie because literally this is just like a blink. So on my phone, okay, I've got a login here. This is actually a login to our own portal for one of our other products. Literally there's a button on here. It says unlock access, but it's going to stay into or start shopping or whatever. Literally, if I tap, it creates an account, pairs with my phone, and logs in. The delay there is about 1 second. 80% of that is me talking to New York.
Yeah,
but that's it. So on a workstation, I want to harness my phone, and so we present a QR code. If I scan that with my phone camera, you'll see I get the same friendly green button. I literally tap, authenticates, and logs in. And what we've created here, I'll go to the depth of the technology. We're harnessing the browser, and we're harnessing standards that were designed to eliminate hackers. And we're kind of doing it in reverse. So we've found a way of creating unique identifiers which are stored deep in the phone, which cannot be intercepted by malware on the phone, cannot be even intercepted by malware in the browser, can't be intercepted while it's in transit, and can only be used by that specific web server that set up this process to begin with. So this is one factor of authentication, but it's far more secure than a username password. And if you need to have more, I literally flick a switch and we'll bring in biometrics as a second factor.
Yeah.
This is a standard called the FIDO2 standard. We are FIDO compliant. Yeah. So you can deploy the FIDO standard, or what they call passkeys now, literally with a flick of a switch, instead of a huge project, because FIDO is complicated. It's a project.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone's got a website that want to provide seamless access for users, double engagement, this is ready.
Yeah, and so that's the registration side of things. But you're also is the the technology and the product that you also have within BankVault as well on the just the seamless passwordless access on other fronts as well.
I'll show you that one. So I'll bring that up on my screen here. So this is an example. Actually, I'll do it on my phone first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've got a login portal. So this could be any website.
Yeah.
This happens to be an accounting system. And most of these technologies, it's a significant project to deploy because you need to make changes to the back end. You need to do data migration. You need to get every user to download, install, or configure software. And if you've got thousands of users, that's a mega project. But what I've done here is I've got a no-code module. We added it in, let's say this morning as a thought experiment. It would have taken 3 to 5 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
I go to the website, it's the same login page. I'm going to go and actually just type in my usual username. I'll type in my usual password. Everything's the same, except the keyboard now is actually white.
Mm.
Now, this I do deliberately to highlight that this actually is an illusion. There is no keyboard. It's just a photograph.
Okay, explain that. What does that mean?
So what we're doing is setting up encoded cells on the screen. Now, the photograph could be pictures of fruit, it could be Chinese characters. We've just got the picture of a keyboard there. The cell that's sitting above the character A, if I press that cell, instead of generating one character, the letter A, instead I'm going to generate maybe 48 characters. And the only place in the universe that can interpret that is the web server, which a second earlier created a security secret. And that's what encoded the screen. So I send those 48 characters back to the web server. It applies a secret. It becomes a character, the letter A, back in the web server. This is different every single time. So you do that a few times. I'm getting literally asterisks echoed on the screen, but any malware in the phone is only going to see asterisks. And there is nothing changes on the phone. Even if you're recording it, you can't record anything. There's nothing going on. So the web server has now got the characters. I typed in the username there earlier. I press login. It transfers the username, merges it with the password. We also create a unique device signature for the phone as a second factor and pass that through. It authenticates and logs in. That's the first and the last time I'll ever do it. If I hit refresh on that page, it recognizes me instantly. It's going to log in as this user. I just say OK. So tap, it authenticates and logs in. Done.
Yeah.
2 factors of authentication in one step, no software, no setup. And if I'm on a workstation, I'll just scan this QR code here. And that's the purpose is just literally to connect the mobile phone. And you'll see here it's recognized me. If I tap, it authenticates and logs in.
Comes up on the screen, just like that.
I'll give you one other little quick demo.
Yeah.
So this is one of our customers. These guys are a financial services group based out of Boston. And I'll just do the same thing, slightly different user experience here. I'm going to scan that. My phone's out of focus. I've got a slight lag here because we're talking to Boston. So on my screen, there it is. It's recognized me. It's going to log me in as this user. I tap. It's now going to ask my biometrics. So I've already got 2 factors, the username, password, something I know, the device signature of the phone, something I have, and now something that I am, my fingerprint. Put my fingerprint to the phone, it authenticates and logs in.
Yeah. And so would that be, if I'm running that train correctly, that's 3?
That was 3 FA.
Yeah, okay.
We could go to 4 or could go to 5.
Yeah.
This is one of the other really brilliant things we realize is that unless you're in the Pentagon, no one's asking for 5 FA.
Yeah.
That market is as thin as a wafer. There's only been 2 banks, Bank of New York Mellon and Bank of the Western California, have asked for 4 FA.
Right.
Okay. The world is going biometrics. You know, Google, Apple, Microsoft, this is passkeys. We're FIDO compliant too. But FIDO has problems. One, as I said earlier, it's very complex to integrate at the back end. You know, it's a mammoth project. And you don't want to get it wrong or your business is offline. And then every user, when you launch this Monday morning, every user phone is different. Every user's capability is different. And there will be a segment of your client base that is struggling and you have no means of shadowing their mobile phone. So you have an impossible support issue. If you look at the actual addressable market, every website on the planet with a web portal today is using either social media or username passwords. The social media is a technology called OAuth. It's convenient. It's often not integrated properly. Salt Labs released a report about 6 months ago naming all these sites that had not done it properly and exposed. Each one of these sites, by the way, had over 100 million users. So it had not done it right and literally exposed the customer credentials.
Yeah.
So the social media thing is not a great idea. It's just convenient. And a lot of people don't trust it. Now, what happens when Facebook blocks your account? Do you really want Facebook knowing everything that you do? There's a reason why Facebook isn't used to authenticate your bank account. So what we've created here is a way of securing the user from the weakest point of the network, which is their own device. We provide seamless access to the online service, whatever, your website, which increases engagement. We're uplifting this to multi-factor authentication, and you could deploy this in 3 to 30 minutes. So the addressable market for this is every web portal on the planet.
Yeah. And you touched on it earlier, Graeme, but I want to get a sense of just the big distinction between what BankVault's offering with this technology versus like having your, say a password manager to overcome this challenge of seamless logging.
So your password managers are convenient. We're told, we've got to have a different password for every website. We're often told we've got to change our password every 3 months, which is just such a pain in the neck. So passwords are just the bane of our existence, and they've been there for 40 years or more now. The password era is coming to the end of its life cycle now with passwordless. The problem with the password managers, they just make it convenient for you to remember. but they're not secure.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying that the password manager is going to be hacked, but the moment it loads your encrypted password into the web form, it is now clear text. You haven't pressed login yet. If there's any software in the browser or machine, it's intercepted instantly. It's very simple. A bit of JavaScript, a hot link you clicked on 6, 8, 10 months ago. That JavaScript is now running in your browser. You have no idea it's legitimate code. It's called non-malware. It's allowed to be there. And you can't measure what it's going to do until it executes. But what it's doing is it's harvesting everything that's going on in your browser. It's very easy over a period of, say, 10 months. According to Semantic, the average is 10 months. The hacker is in your browser. And he knows everything. He knows your login credentials to your bank and everything else. So if I'm the hacker and I've got your login credentials to your bank account, I'm now one step away from tricking you to revealing your second factor, which I can do because I've got control of your browser. It's social engineering. That one-time passcode is issued once, but it lasts for the next 35 seconds and can be used multiple times. I've got you. And if your money's gone or the account is compromised and I'm in there, I can hold you to ransom. I can steal your data. I can,
Yeah, there's endless sort of things that can be done, yeah.
And the consequences, the reputational damage for the institution, the individual, can be catastrophic. So the problem is really dire. What we've done here is found a way of actually resolving that in a way that's far simpler. So your user doesn't have to configure two-factor authentication. There is no cost for you to deploy 2FA. We're providing seamless access. It's far better than having to remember a username password. You don't need the password manager anymore. Everything wins. And the market is currently $45 billion and growing.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like that reason why you have that invisible keyboard, so like anything that's being typed, if you had, for instance, that, some kind of software running, they wouldn't be able to try, like, actually see what's being typed. There's no
there's nothing. The technology is our technology is invisible to the malware. You can't hack something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Yeah, that's great, Graeme. I want to dive a bit into, because one of the I think one of the first times I actually met you in person. In fact, I was coming into a meeting. You actually you might not remember this, but you actually like semi mentoring someone who was also in the startup space, and you're giving him some advice on pitching and things like that. And I do see you as a leader in that space, and I want to get a sense of what your journey has been like in having to raise funds, having to you talked a bit at the beginning about it, but having to pitch and having to speak in front of audiences about your product.
Yeah, I can talk to this. So it's never about me. It is always about the material. What I can say, look, as a thing of credibility, I've come equal first or won, I think, every pitch event I've entered in the last 7 or 8 years worldwide. It's not the speaker, it's the format, it's the material. So there definitely is something that anybody can learn. What I normally do, my technique is to kind of lay up a series of nails and just go bang, 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 bang. And it nails the presentation. So this is for pitching for investors or pitching on stage or anything. I rehearse massively beforehand. So it is completely scripted and architected to get a particular outcome. I also move through very fast. So there's a whole lot of different strategies here. So I like to help people. If I can share my ideas, I'm more than happy to do that. My advice is free. I don't put myself out as a guru at all, because other people are way better at this than I am. But what I've done has brought success for me. So there is something to the formula. The thing of raising capital is the market keeps changing in its expectations. We are currently here in 2024. I think 2023 and 2024 have been the hardest environment economically since the dot-com crash 20 years ago. Silicon Valley, we had a Series A investor. It was a corporate VC. It was actually one of our customers. was going to be putting in around $70 million. Due diligence took a year. It was done. I like these guys a lot, knew them very well. They're actually a customer. You know, was happy on. Everyone was happy with the valuation, which I was so proud of. And I even restructured my company around this, and the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. Devastated Silicon Valley. Then the Signature Bank collapsed. Then, unbelievably, the First Republic Bank collapsed. This is in the US. And this put a shockwave right through Silicon Valley. Basically, all investments were frozen. And since then, the Gaza war started. That actually disrupted our next investor. We were in due diligence with this other investor, and the last I heard from him, he was in Gaza, or not in Israel. So it's just like, two black swan events in a year. I've just got used to this sort of thing, though. There's always something you could not have predicted. You literally just have to keep going. I mean, you can't give up. I never give up. So, and I think when you're back into a corner is when you get really creative. You can learn to climb the walls, and you get out of your comfort zone, and you talk to people that are outside your network, because that's where it's like rolling the dice. That's where chance comes in and a connection, and you've got the time, or you make the time, and then it happens. And this is where magic happens. So I've met some of the most amazing people in the world through pitching for investment. And it enlarges my life. I mean, they say you're the average of your five closest friends, but if you keep surrounding yourself by super intelligent people, it's like the sun is shining every day. It's like, oh my God, I would never have thought of that, because that's now part of your universe. And then you can pass that on to other people as well and help wake them and up and make them realize. So for me, it's a continuum. It's just my life. I'm doing this at least 18 hours a day and 7 days a week. It's not a job. It's my life, and I love it. And it would be great to, so we're back in raising more investment right now. It's silly to just say it's hard. It's a process of reaching out, getting introductions. There's a lot of stuff online about raising investment. Bottom line of it is, it's not pitch events. Pitch events are really just a point of getting noticed and getting introductions. I think it's actually about the introduction, the personalized introduction. It's less about what you're saying or even who you are. It's actually that introduction is 80% of the reason why you'll get a meeting or a conversation. Then you need to perform. You've got to have something that is always bigger and better than what you had before, and why this is going to kill it. It's inevitable. You've got to prove that with facts and evidence, not just adjectives. And I think I've heard this before, and it's so true, 80% of the reason people invest is because they trust you, and they trust that you can actually deliver this. And so it's actually about the entrepreneur or the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a lot of questions based on what you said there. What? Yeah. 100%. Like one thing.
I wanted to just say I had an investor meeting yesterday. It was a business manager for a potential investor. I got the introduction. It's a really perfect introduction. It still took 6 weeks, 7 weeks to get the first contact response back. So you kind of give up, but you can't give up. Then finally we got the connection. I still haven't actually spoken to this guy. This email exchanges. He sent it his business manager yesterday, 9:30 for what is normally an hour's meeting. If they turn up to your office, it's an hour's meeting. We went straight through 6 hours, solidly, without a break. I think we had a glass of water. But it was awesome. So obviously that's a signal that there is solid interest in what we were doing to go that deep. So exhausting day, but an exhilarating day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like just on that, like you mentioned before, like how there's so much that is outside of your control, like, and there's things that you're like, like 2 major world events that you have nothing to do with, like your actions aren't contributing to that. But I guess like where did you kind of harness that attitude of, okay, like what can I do next, or like just moving forward, or what's something I can do? Like where did that come from? Is it?
Yeah, this is the inner game, right?
Yeah.
It's I've always I've got a vision of what I'm trying to do. I That's all there is. I think it's if you're a person who does something like 95%, that's hard because you're distracted with other choices. When I do something, it's like 100.00%. There is no other choices. This is why I find it quite easy to work through to 4 a.m. in the morning each day, and I'm up at 8 o'clock again. And because I sink myself into it, and that's actually what I'm doing. I'm here. This is my world. This is my life. I've got a bigger purpose. I sometimes can't tell you what day of the week it is. If it's a weekend, it's like it doesn't matter. Boom. So I'm really focused hard. I think it's, as I said, it's not 18 hours of creative work. It's just bulk effort grinding through. But I do get the work done, and I'd love to be more efficient. AI helps a little bit, not much. We should chat about AI.
We can in a
another
second.
angle.
Yeah.
How do I do it? I don't know. It's just you have a vision. I have people that depend on me. Investors that are depending on me to come through. So I'm literally. I think whatever I do, I literally 100.00% committed. That's it. There is no 99%. So if I fail, it's not from lack of trying.
Yeah. And is that what you want to be at the end of the day? You'd want to be able to say that to yourself, like, I've tried everything, like it is no.
Yeah, I don't. I think the end of my life is a long way in the future.
I'm sure it is great. the way you run, I think so.
I remember when I took a little stint, a contract in the government for a 2-year contract, and a year in the agriculture department, which was like a university campus. It was just brilliant. And I had a year in the police department, which was like a mental prison. Culturally, just unbelievable. And I will say I'd gone through a period earlier where I actually started a business, and I got swindled by my partners. It was the hardest thing ever. I was literally working 120 hours a week for about 2 years. I couldn't tell you what happened in the world, but I became very good at what I did, and we were breaking through. And then I literally got tricked into signing a blank check, lost everything. They wanted to crush my confidence, so they really went out of their way to be nasty. And I was the only guy doing the work. I just started asking difficult questions like, where's all the money going? So, yeah, it was the hardest couple of years of my life. It got down to 0, I think. I realized 1 and 1 equals 2. I can prove that. And then I built right back up to ultimately they collapsed without me. I took back the company. I'm still running it today.
Wow. And what was the biggest thing you learned from that experience?
The formula for success is just do a good job. You get asked back. It's just that. The world is about relationships. The foundation is that people can trust you and know that if they give this to you, you're going to do everything that you can to deliver and be relied upon. I did have another amazing issue some years ago, which I can talk about now. I run a data center. We built a data center. We built a supercomputing infrastructure. Literally was some secondhand computing gear, some brand new computing gear, your supercomputing gear. And this technology was impossible to ever go down. Unbelievably, a software bug had been introduced to the operating system. One of our guys went down there to change a hard disk that had failed and pulled the hard disk out. The entire system went down. So this is a huge system where there was too much data to ever back up. The data was striped across not only different disks, but actually different machines. This is something that would scale to exabyte scale, which is like 1,000 racks fully populated. So with linear performance, so it was incredible technology. But literally, and we trusted it. And my engineers stopped taking backups, and the system failed. And what happened was that all of our customers here in Perth, businesses, were completely offline. And if your data center is offline for a few minutes, it's like, bells are ringing. 15 minutes, it's like, this is a crisis. And we were down for days.
Wow.
I was convinced it was the end of the business. All I could do now is do whatever we could to ensure that our customers continued. My guys, my team were working literally 22 hours a day for days and days, and we were literally dependent on the hardware. The incredible thing that happened at the end of this, we did some tricks to get customers running. Out of this, we never lost a single customer.
Wow. Okay.
And looking back, what it was is that we were transparent. Everyone knows that computers go wrong. But when they go wrong, you want the best team ever committed to doing, sorting out the problem. And they knew that we were. Yeah, it was quite a proud moment to, on the other side of it, not lose a single customer. Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that as well, like there's the transparency, but also you'd built up so much trust over that time working with those clients. Do you think that contributed to it as well?
Yeah, we got good relationships with the clients always. My success formula, not the success formula, is a good consultant is always in demand. Technology changes. There's always different waves of technology, but it's like a cork floating on these different waves. So I always have in my team, we've got a very strong technical backbone, really capable guys. We are incentivized on just literally keeping customers operational and happy and doing clever things. So yeah, it's a very simple success formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do a good job and say what you're going to do, right?
Yeah, it's you get invited back.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, look, Graeme, we are coming to the end of this episode, unfortunately. I'm sure there's loads we could talk about, but because you'd mentioned it, I do want to touch a bit on AI. Could you talk a bit about that and also the implications in what you're doing, especially with BankVault?
Yeah. I would love to add AI to the end of what we're doing, because whatever I say now is going to be out of date within a few months,
right,
or less. This is moving so fast.
Yeah. I
try to look at where the trends are going. I've been always very good at picking the trends a few years out, and I can't see them now. This is super scary, but you have to embrace technology. It's going to be here. So find a way of hooking that wave and paddling with it. I still have friends that have not actually set up their own account on OpenAI or Claude or whatever, and I just encourage them to actually get in and play, because I think what we've got right now is the most massive disruption that humanity has ever seen, and it's going to happen like it's happening right now. So your kids' teachers is now sitting in their pocket. It's listening. It's going to know more about you personally. The teacher, classroom teacher, is now a supervisor, just to make sure the kids are behaving. Transportation. I've had a car driving past my place every 15 minutes in San Francisco for the last, 4, 5, 6 years without a driver. I can now hop into a car now where there is no driver and drive through San Francisco and shortly back to the airport. It's a bit scary when you think that you're trusting your life. I mean, the freeway 101 freeway is mayhem. Everyone's traveling at 70 miles an hour or more, and you're trusting a brain the size of your fingernail, and there is no heart. It's but we're going to get used to it very quickly. 10% of the population in a first world country, I think, is involved in transportation. Well, that's going to be disrupted. That will take longer to disrupt because of legislation and stuff than it will to disrupt lawyers, teachers, guitarists. If you're a language teacher, it's this now. it's incredible. This is the changes to our society. It's hard to see where it's going to go. My hope is in the future that things will rationalise and balance out, and the balance will be that AI will be benevolent. I hope. We don't treat animals well, but I hope it will treat us well. And yeah, I think that there's the potential to have increase in GDP thousands of folds more than we have today. Right now, we thrive off competition to a point, but there is incredible inefficiency because of competition. If you can just rationalize that, if you're working in a room over here and I'm working in a room over there, if AI knows what we're working on, you can just join us together. It eliminates problems, improve the flow of goods and services. It will probably eliminate wars and conflicts. So there'll be a period here where actually, I think on the other side of it, it could be fantastic for us all.
But do you think there's going to be quite a messy sort of...
We have the next 20, 30 years, 40 years of incredibly unpredictable changes here. But you have to embrace it and work with it. It's mind-blowing. We are in a transition. And I do believe that if we get signs of life out there in the stars, it's not organic.
Yeah. It was. Well, on that note, Graeme, I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast. But before we close things off, how can people find out more about you, but also more importantly, more about BankVault?
Yeah. So if anybody is interested in providing passwordless access or eliminating registration abandonment, BankVault.com. Happy to have you come on board, try some of our products. For startups, they're free, and it's pretty easy. We'd be delighted to help anybody in our ecosystem.
Fantastic, Graeme. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope we can have you on again in future to talk about many more topics, for sure.
Thanks, Jeremy.